What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about an article that I just found in Teen Vogue magazine that is introducing us to a new labor union down in the South that's organizing low-wage workers throughout industries and is reminiscent of the early labor movement that actually won all of the gains that we have been stagnated on since the 50s. But all of those gains that were actually won back then in the New Deal, it was this type of labor action that won those gains. And who knew that Teen Vogue had a pro-labor bent in their politics section? I do now. I might even subscribe. Free ad for Teen Vogue. Good job on this article. Without further ado, let's dive right on in. This is from their politics section, all right? Union of Southern Service Workers is organizing low-wage workers across industries. No Class is an op-ed column by writer and radical organizer Kim Kelly that connects workers' struggles and the current state of the American labor movement with its storied and sometimes bloodied past. Hearing that description is really, it harkens to that spirit that I keep telling you guys about, that labor spirit, that rejuvenation that's going on all across the country that we're witnessing and people are very slow to report on in the mainstream. But if you're paying attention, you know all about it. I'm talking about the Starbucks workers. I'm talking about Amazon. I'm talking about the John Deere workers that went on strike. I'm talking about the UAW who elected a new president, the Teamsters who elected a new president, reformer types. I'm talking about the labor movement is awakening. This giant that was lulled to sleep by gains that were made from the hunger and starvation of its birth is waking up because it's starving again. This giant called working people, that force that drives the entire economy. But I'm going off on a tangent. I want to talk to you about this article. This is that spirit that I'm talking about, all right? So this came out March 20th, 2023, and I just learned about it yesterday. By Kim Kelly, once again. This is the Union of Southern Service Workers. All right, here we go. If you truly want to understand the history of organized labor in this country, you must look to the South, specifically to what black workers and other workers of color have accomplished there, despite every conceivable obstacle. Nowadays, states such as Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and North Carolina, Virginia, are home to anti-union right-to-work legislation that makes it extremely difficult for workers to organize. Corporate-friendly politicians have actively worked to disenfranchise and oppress poor and working-class people, especially the most marginalized. A century ago, things weren't much different, but like today, those workers fought back. They protested, they picketed, formed unions, and went on strike. And here's the kicker. Many of them were considered unorganizable. That's racism, guys. Why were they considered unorganizable 100 years ago in the South? Think about it. Think about it. Unorganizable by labor leadership and labor opponents alike. A status pinned to various groups of workers. Typically, casual, low-income workers of color, recent immigrants, or both throughout the centuries. This is not wrong, according to those labor history books that I'm reading. In 1935, when the National Labor Relations Act, a landmark labor law that gave most workers the legal right to organize, bargain, and strike, was passed, it included several glaring omissions. By excluding domestic workers and agricultural workers, many of whom were black, particularly in the South, the National Labor Relations Act made it clear that for all its New Deal era progressivism, the politicians who passed it had decided that some workers simply weren't worth fighting for. Can you imagine? But that's true. Read a labor history book. You'll see. Read about the early AFL-CIO and the Knights of Labor and how they had different philosophies about who to organize into labor unions. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Weren't worth fighting for. Sadly, we are always given this narrative by those in power. They always push us to view each other separately, and we never, or have a hard time coming to a point where we can see each other for the human beings that we are, that are working in the same conditions. We just happen to come from different tribes, but we're being dominated by the same class. And sadly, that class uses our subtle differences to create chasms between where we actually agree, and we have a hard time uniting. Fortunately, those workers took matters into their own hands and organized anyway, from the communist tenant farmers in Alabama, described in historian Robin D.G. Kelly's classic Hammer and Hoe, to Dorothy Lee Bolden and the National Domestic Workers Union of America in Atlanta. Now, the Union of Southern Service Workers, the USSW, is determined to follow in their footsteps by organizing today's unorganizable Southern workers. We're taking it back, man. This is like Knights of Labor type actions. The union was co-founded by over 150 retail, fast food, restaurant, and care workers who live and work throughout the South. USSW went public in November, but it has been built on a decade of prior organizing work by Raise Up the South, the Southern branch of the Fight for $15 and a union campaign, and backed by the Service Employees International Union, or SEIU. Staff organizers provide support when desired, but the new union is an entirely worker-led effort, member-centric, and did not bother filing for recognition from the National Labor Relations Board before going public. As far as USSW is concerned, a union is a group of workers organizing collectively, and that is exactly who they are. The Ignite Committee, a group of workers from different jobs and different states who were deeply involved with Raise Up, helped to create the vision of the new union. 25-year-old Jamila Allen tells Teen Vogue she is a founding member of USSW, has been involved with Rise Up since 2018, and currently works at the Durham, North Carolina location of local fast food chain Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers. Our goal for our union is to get our voices on the job and make sure workers are heard. A real voice on the job means that we would have the power to discuss with the bosses and negotiate terms about things like pay raises, health insurance, and safety conditions. That's the same thing that all workers care about. This is not some radical left idea. This is all basic things that are the reasons we go to work. It's the pay raises, health insurance, safety conditions, this is all part of what all working people want. The USSW is unique among American labor unions for several reasons. First, it is far more focused on direct action and building worker power on the shop floor than in winning union elections or dealing with the NLRB. In this way, USSW has far more in common with the anti-capitalist union Industrial Workers of the World, founded in 1905, than it does with most other traditional labor unions in the U.S. In the USSW's view, that system is simply not set up to serve its goals, and there is no time to waste. Though USSW is young, its members have already led multiple strikes and coordinated actions. Most recently, a 2-day strike at a Dollar General in Columbia, South Carolina, that was led by 23-year-old USSW member Brianna Shaw. As Shaw tells Teen Vogue, if no one stands up, it'll be an endless cycle. I went on strike to break the cycle and fight for what we need: safety, fair pay, and respect from Dollar General. We focus on strikes and actions because how else are you going to get anything done if you don't act? Sarah DeArmond, 23, adds. She lives in Cullowhee, North Carolina. Cullowhee, North Carolina, a small town in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and works in the bakery section of a local Walmart. DeArmond holds a degree in sociology and international studies, but has remained at Walmart due to a lack of decent paying job opportunities in her area. When workers strike, the company loses money, DeArmond continues. It reminds them that workers are the ones actually running everything and making the profit. Plus, strikes catch the public's attention. Living in this country where everyone expects everything to be on demand all the time, when you go to a drive-thru and you can't get your favorite drink because they're on strike, it reminds the public that workers run things. The second difference is that the USSW is focused on organizing across multiple industries, an approach that recognizes the economic realities that many low-wage service workers face and the deep commonalities between various job types. Commonalities, because it doesn't matter what type of work you do, you still work for the same purposes, you still expect the same things. commonalities is obvious to me. The USWW's community-based approach emphasizes connections between economic, racial, and gender justice and works to tear down artificial divisions between members and their neighbors. If that's not exactly what we've been talking about, power puts imaginary barriers between us so that we hate each other. The last thing they want is for us to agree. Power would hate to see working people agree and then use that agreement to create power from the base. Remember, we are the foundation of this entire country. Working people, foundation. You know what the foundation is? For any structure, ask any engineer. Foundation fails, your whole thing comes down. We are the foundation. We prop them up. They got no choice but to fall in line if we all align. But we have to align. All right, so let's keep going. We're the workers that a lot of people look down on, Allen says, and we got to stop doing that. A lot of people don't treat fast food workers, gas station workers, or other service workers with respect. Everybody struggles on the job, whether it's fast food, retail, care work. Everybody is underpaid. All these are things we have in common. We all need change. That's why we're organizing across the service industry. There's high turnover, and workers usually move to different jobs, from retail to being a server in a restaurant to home care, Allen adds. And a lot of our members work 2 jobs at the same time. So when you switch jobs, you can still be part of our union and have the union protecting you at all these jobs. Finally, and arguably the most important, the USSW is a loud, proud, explicitly anti-racist union. Many other unions claim to do the same or be the same, but this one places the issue front and center, drawing clear connections between how the legacy of slavery, the region's Jim Crow past, and its fundamentally unequal present impact black and brown workers. USSW is a multiracial and anti-racist organization. Allen says firmly, there's a long history of workers organizing here in the South. There is history of black workers organizing, and there's also been a history of black and white and brown workers coming together and organizing here in the South. A lot of people never learned this history. Our union is going to be like those workers before us who weren't afraid to fight. We are going to come together and fight for our demands. Damn! Be still, my heart. Beyond that, USSW ensures that its members who have intersecting marginalized identities have the space and support to bring additional issues to the fore. Ashley Ruth Eccles, 31, currently works at Macy's in the Mall of Georgia in Atlanta, and as a neurodivergent worker and stroke survivor, she is particularly interested in ensuring that workers in her position feel empowered to organize. I want them to know their rights if they're being treated unfairly at their jobs, and help others know the tools they can use to organize and demand fair treatment, she says. I want to tell neurodivergent people that there are resources, there is help, there's a space for them regardless of what anybody tells them. The union that Ashley Ruth, Sarah, T. Brianna, Jamila, and dozens of their fellow co-workers are building together may have gone public only months ago, but the goals they are all working toward have been centuries in the making. Their demands are simple, but extraordinarily important for the well-being of the workers they represent. The USSW is fighting for dignity and equal treatment on the job, proper health conditions and safety at work, fair and consistent scheduling, a livable wage upon which workers can survive and thrive, the right to organize, and a seat at the table. We are going to keep doing blitzes, canvassing, community cookouts, whatever it takes to reach more workers and get more workers organized and signed up as members of USSW, Allen says. Our goal is to transform our underpaid, unlivable, unsafe service jobs into good union jobs. Amen. Preach that gospel. At a time when public support for labor unions is at its highest since 1965, and thousands of workers in a vast array of industries are organizing, striking, and winning, the Union of Southern Service Workers seems right on time. Members' vision of one big union for the entire service industry is revolutionary in scope, but it also makes perfect sense. Without workers, nothing gets done. Their demands are not only reasonable, they may even be a little modest. I want workers to realize it's a system that was made by people, D. Armand says. We can unmake it. It's possible to do that. It's possible to make huge changes, but we have to come together. It's never going to change unless workers organize and demand it. Woo! That's all fire. Hey, established unions. All you guys that work in the established unions that have already built up their power and have forgotten how to fight, have them read this article right here in the description box. This just juices you up because it's true. And if you're paying attention, you gotta know what is lying in front of you, the opportunity that is lying in front of you, organizing MFers. It is lying right there in front of you. The inequality that we're facing today is the sword that will unite all of working people behind a common goal to change the way things are. If we only believe in working people, tell them the truth, show them the way. Everybody wants to fight, and those that don't, they're just leeches. I've always said it, man. If you're strong enough and you want to reach the end zone, like Jerome Bettis, you're gonna drag those anchors with you, and they'll reap the benefits for your hard work. But you're gonna drag them with you across that goal line. That's what anchors are. They're just dead weight, and we have them in every union, in every organization. There's people that are sitting there to leech off of all the hard work. Whatever, we gonna keep working anyway, because the end game is to lift the floor up. I don't want to have to fall to poverty and homelessness because this country ain't got the safety nets to protect us. I don't want to have to fall to that level. I want to make sure that my agreement always keeps me as protected as possible, as my Constitution demands me to do. It didn't say I had to be in office to do it. It just said I had to do it because it's in our Constitution and we all swore the oath. So I'm doing my little part. I hope you do yours. Let's organize the entire world, man. Great job, Teen Vogue. I'll give you some of their other articles that I'm going to have to read. Billionaires should not exist. Here's why. What is retaliation in the workplace? Here are your rights and what to know. American work culture is the problem, not you. What a labor union is and how it works. How are unpaid internships still a thing? That's crazy that all of these little articles are sitting here in Teen Vogue. I'll be back. My name's Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember that the fight's not left and right. It is up and down. It's always going to be up and down. It's going to take class solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And there can be no union without you and I front and center. Peace.